And just like that, we're to Sunday, where we give you guys the updated weekly expected moves and daily expected moves for Monday. So we'll get you guys those 68% zones based on the options market. That's how we do that calculation over there. But today we need to get into the shorter time frame. So if you want to go over the big ones, the daily ones, the weekly ones, we do have the previous video for you. But for today, we're going to be getting into those 2-hour and 30-minute charts to really see what is very probable for the week ahead or some things that we could react to. Let's get into it. Just before we get started, I wanted to bring up the SPX 500 because we actually see a big move here. So as I show you the SPY is 3 or 4 points at the end of the day after hours. It went up about 3 or 4 points. We did see a solid buyer come in where with some great liquidity in these areas, right? So we want to be paying attention to this because even though a lot of people will call a top and the momentum signals are suggesting a top is probable, it is important to do our homework. Remember when all the momentum signals were saying a top is probable here, but volatility was saying there was an 85% chance for an update. So we need to be patient, look for that update and see what shapes up. As we made a higher low, that's when we said, uh-oh, things are going wrong here. We need to watch for another move higher. The daily is most likely going to curl up. That's how the market proves itself. We don't have any of this information right now, but what we do have is a divergence on your RSI for the 2-hour and the 4-hour for the SPX 500, and we're going to check out the US 100 after we go over the Qs. But for this, you can see how easily this can go wrong if the 4-hour curls up and just makes a new high above this one, right? We make a new high above this one, get to that weekly move, we can literally be right back on the bull. We have not taken out the critical levels. And as we pointed out in our previous video, volatility did not scale up dramatically with this move, even though it is a bigger sell-off, which is pretty crazy to me. It should be popping off a little bit harder than back over in October, in my opinion, because this number was, yes, surprising, but this number is much bigger. It is about 25% bigger. So what am I getting at here? I just want to show you why it is still good to pay attention to both sides and not have a bias to the downside, even though we do have good daily confirmations and we have confirmations for the daily scale volatility to turn to the upside. But paying attention to right now is critical. What did we say on the Thursday video? Thursday video was overall suggesting that this is going to be the bull's last chance. Did this overall change what we said in that Thursday video, considering we were suggesting, hey, they need to figure out their stuff by Friday or Monday, the next 2 trading sessions, or else this thing could break through this low. Once you break through this low, you start to go into a very, hey, this is a daily time frame downtrend. That has not happened yet, okay? So you want to be paying attention very critically to these areas, especially as a big buyer steps in on Friday, okay? So let's go over to the SPY. If you wanted those these levels here, these should work for the ES and things like that as well if you want to pause right here and get those levels for the SPX 500 for futures in any way. So as of right now, we don't do 4-hour charts for the SPY. We look at a 2-hour one. So what can we do from here? We can get you guys weekly and daily expected moves. That way we're at least prepared with some good critical levels. We see 685.16 to the upside. We also see 650.678 to the downside. For the daily expected moves, we do see 676.16 to the upside, and we have 665.78 to the downside. So these are 68% zones for the week, 68% zone for the day. As of right now, this is up to about 674, I believe, in the current. We'll see how that opens up Sunday and Monday morning. But for the time being, this would suggest what, according to our MACD? Well, our MACD is very deep. The last time that we were able to figure it out, you're pretty much at this stage right here. You are literally at this stage right here, and you're going to get some kind of little bit of relief here to maybe tag that 5-day moving average, and you need to reject again. If you don't reject again, but instead make a higher low, this is why we were suggesting new all-time highs was very probable. In here, we actually suggested that new all-time highs could be probable. We failed that signal, right? We actually did not fail any signals throughout this entire move until right here. So signals have got this very, very right, and then the lower probable thing happened right over here. That being said, we need to actually get into some information that probably really helps you out, which is what? What if we see the 2-hour curl up here? Well, the 2-hour is not by any means crazy far away from the center line, but it is far enough away that you would say what? a lower high is very probable. So maybe we're going to come take care of a couple of gaps. Maybe we're going to go up to that weekly expected move and turn to the downside. And it will be as simple as, oh, we curl up and we curl back down, and this market continues the downtrend. To actually break the low, you need to break in order to really be saying, hey, this is highly, highly probable, aka I can call this a top. As it stands right now, you would say these sell signals are selling you its probable top, but the market itself, the actual prices, the breaking of the lows, the price action, the trend is not overall saying that yet. You need to take out these lows first. If we start out the week by breaking those, then we will look for the reaction up, and it will most likely be a top. As it stands, the positioning of the MACD is suggesting if it curls up, it is very likely to be a lower high. But if we start to take out levels like 681, you need to be very aware that we could dink back off of the 5-day as we take this staggered line back, and then we could start moving to that upside. Again, the reason that I am mentioning these things is also because of how the VIX is shaping up, how this top actually potentially happened, right? These sell signals, how did they confirm? They confirmed without any type of lower high signal. They confirmed without any type of divergence at this point for the 2-hour chart. That does not give me confidence in these. That actually makes me lean a little bit more in the bear trap direction. That being said, this is proving some things to the downside. We have not seen those things violate, but we're talking about those things right now. If the 2-hour would curl up, you would want to be cautious because this is going to be the last ditch effort for the bulls to take back this market. And if the bulls fail, well, then you don't have to be surprised by that failure or hoping for that failure. You can say, I like this money, volatility scaled up for a minute, let that reaction happen. And then if it rolls again, we see it roll really, really close to that center line. Ooh, then that can be the next big drop to potentially go down to where the monthly expected move. So this will be a time where a bounce does look like it is pretty probable for potentially even the 2-hour chart. But the 30-minute chart is suggesting we're going to have to do some time down here, right? We're going to have to take our time and actually make some reversal signals for that 2-hour to get a bounce. So as it stands, we would say, okay, this needs to see a big reaction up and be able to keep going, right? We're going to need to go positive on this 30-minute push because right now the positioning of this MACD and no divergence below us on the RSI or in these areas would say we need to watch out for higher lows, but also we could potentially just dink off of that 5-day and we can make a divergence point down by this weekly expected move. So you could see kind of an upside and then we could immediately turn down, go to that weekly expected move and then get that 30-minute divergence. If you get a 30-minute divergence here, it's very simple. It means the 2-hour is going to get a reaction to the upside, and you look for a lower high first. If it proves to hold up better, then you would say, oh, I don't want to reload on those downward positions because we have higher lows and things like that. But the 30-minute is suggesting that upside, yep, up, 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 and we're actually up in these areas right now. So we would want to see a rejection. If you do see that curl down in negative territory, before it's able to cleanly go positive, then you would say it is going to test this low, go make a new one. And where is the level that we'd be watching at that point? 656.78 for the 30-minute chart. And if that divergence does then confirm, you might be able to see some kind of 2-hour bounce in this area. And we will pay very, very close attention where if this does roll and goes to the downside, we're going to be watching this low very carefully. But I want to talk about a few ways that this all could be going wrong because it looks great on the bigger time frames, but that big buyer stepped in. We're going into a liquidity zone. We have not taken out the low. And the last time that we talked like this and people hated me for it, it ended up saving us from a lot of pain thinking that a stock market crash was going to happen. So let's just do our homework in here. If a crash is going to go further, we are going to see the signals prove that over time. We just need to be patient. We'll try to do it a little bit backwards for the Qs, but we do see 627.65 to the upside. We see that we're outside of the monthly expected move, the downside move for the Qs. So you see how, like next week, we're probably going to be playing with these lows and we're going to see what happens with them. If we're able to tag a price below this, man, we'd be looking for another reaction, right? If we rolled and came down to here, we'd say we're out of the 68% zone. Yeah, we're looking for a reaction up. But that's very likely to be a lower high at this point. So we'll be watching this very carefully. 627.65 to the upside, 591.83 to the downside outside of the monthly expected move. So be very cautious because this means if we do go to these levels, yes, we can see crazy things to the downside, But you might want to be very, very critical in understanding that this is where your 68% zone ends and the 32% begins. So if you see a 30-minute divergence down by this level, then watch out. This means that we could see more upside, maybe coming up to test that 5-day, maybe going to a daily expected move on Monday. And then if we reject off, we can go down to the monthly or weekly expected move. And if we see a divergence pop up there, this is something that seems to be highly probable for next week. We're looking for that 2-hour reaction. The 2-hour is a decently deep here, but we have not broken these lows. So we want to say a 2-hour lower high is probable. We do not have signals to turn around the 2-hour yet. We would need a 30-minute higher low. We would need a 30-minute divergence. But as it stands, if this 2-hour curls up, I don't necessarily want to play around with it. Why is that? Well, because this is the major low we need to take out. This is higher than that point. So if we're able to build back for whatever reason, I don't want to be holding on to those positions that I got way up here. I can take a little bit of profit, leave some runners or things like that, let this thing curl up. And if I see signs that it is going to turn back down, I would rather reload those positions later. If we see a weak move like this, kind of drug out and then it rolls, that is when we can reload on those. So that's just something to talk about there. It is just a matter of, yes, if you still think this market's heading down, you would like to see some kind of relief and then rejection. But at this point, you would say if the 2-hour curls up, we do still have probabilities to test this high and go make a new one, as long as we can take back that 5-day moving average very cleanly. Why is that? We didn't take out the critical levels yet. We're right in a big liquidity zone, and a big buyer stepped in towards the end of the day on Friday. This by no means negates the fact that the daily timeframes have confirmed these things, but remember what we suggested in yesterday's video. The Qs are suggesting that there is some wonkiness to these signals, and we could be buying some time here. Buying some time means we could buy another rally up to a higher price point for the potential SPY to get to 700, which seems to be a huge, huge level for the end of the year. So we'll be watching out for it. What's the overall sentiment here? It says, hey, if the 2-hour curls up, I don't want to be bearish right away. But if the 2-hour rejects, that could maybe be my next opportunity. And I need to watch out for any kind of higher low or divergence at these areas, because that's what's going to hint me that there is going to be a bounce. VIX on the 30-minute and the 2-hour chart, we're showing divergences originally. I think the big point here for volatility is we saw a bigger sell-off recently than this. But volatility is not even close to react. It's not even holding above 20 at this point. So with all that sell-off, with all that bearishness, with all that data, with all those 1% a day sell-offs, yeah, we did not even close above 20. We didn't even close above the 200. This is not a good sign. So if this daily is able to rotate through all of these moving averages again, man, that's going to be rough. So how do we know if the daily is going to be able to just collapse here for volatility and we're just going to see a blow-off top squeeze again? Well, what we would need to see here is if the 2-hour fails to curl up into positive territory. So as it stands, volatility is suggesting, hey, I can curl down here and I can give the market a bounce. The market can bounce a little bit, which it bounced after hours, so maybe it will. But if the 2-hour is able to curl up into positive territory again, probably without making a new low here would be best, then this thing can get pretty rough to the downside, okay? So this is what pretty much volatility is saying is watch out for a lower high on the 2-hour, right? That's overall what's being suggested. At this point, the 30-minute chart for volatility is not negative necessarily. It's right on that center line, and we don't necessarily have divergences or a lower high. So we actually could see that 30-minute divergence for the SPY and see volatility get some kind of 30-minute reaction. So if the 30-minute turns up from volatility, you would want to be patient to the bull side. You'd want to say, let me make sure this creates a divergence, and let me make sure the SPY potentially creates that divergence as well. And that would be a fantastic hint. So a lot of the things we're talking about here really go around this, the 2-hour chart, right? For volatility, the 2-hour looks like it wants to back off, which means the 2-hour could see an upward move here for the SPY. And we want to watch this move very critically, because if we reject from this gap, if we gap fill and reject, if we reject from the weekly expected move, that would suggest a lower high is probable as we go negative. So we're going to watch it very carefully and look for higher lows or divergences that can help us understand if the momentum here is good, just like we did right over here. So we're going to do the same thing. Big collapse, big confirmations, probable top, right? But we say 85% chance for a bounce. Let's do our homework in here. Uh-oh, we see a higher low. That means upside. Uh-oh, we're positive making a what? A higher low. That means upside. We are just going to start looking for things like this right over here. But instead, if we just see one go up and one reject, then we would say we're going to lower prices. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. I'm glad I was able to get through it. My voice lasted me all this time. I appreciate you guys struggling through listening to my nasally voice while I've been sick, but I do appreciate you watching this video. So thank you so much. Have a great Sunday with your family, and peace out.